with that, I'm now going to hand over and do an introduction of Professor Heyman Russell Botman. He is the Rector and Vice Chancellor of Stellenbosch University, South Africa. He was first appointed in 2007 and reappointed for a 5-year term in 2012. He also serves as a Director of Higher Education South Africa, a Vice President of the Association of African Universities, Chairperson of the Cape Town World Design Capital 2014 Board, a Trustee of the African Institute for Mathematical Sciences, and President of the Academic Consortium for the 21st Century. He holds a PhD in Theology from the University of the Western Cape and is the recipient of the Princeton Theological Seminary's 2013 Abraham Kuyper Prize for Excellence in Theology and Public Life. In March 2014, quite recently, he was awarded an honorary doctorate by Hope College in Michigan, USA, for his leadership in higher education to promote a more just society for all South Africans. And in June, Professor Botman, you will receive another honorary doctorate from the University of Aberdeen in Scotland. So congratulations on that as well. Professor Botman is a proponent of the idea that science should drive Africa's development and has been the prime mover behind the HOPE project. And you can see there's HOPE International, HOPE at Africa banners here today as well. And he has done this as a vehicle for Stellenbosch University's transformation and positioning in the 21st century. He received recognition from the United Nations Association of South Africa for his commitment to the Millennium Development Goals. It is his view that universities should not be ivory towers, but should serve society as engaged institutions and should shape their students to be global citizens and critical agents of change. And I think those last few sentences are very apt in our context of the global classroom. So it's a great honor to welcome you. Thanks, Professor.
Thank you very much. Good day, everyone. It's good to see all of you here, and I'm sure with all the enthusiasm that I see on the faces and all the smiles that it is not for me but for the future. You can see it. You can see it when you look at the things that you will be doing today. I'm also glad that we are joined online by participants around the world, and we're happy to share moments from this beautiful place, Stellenbosch, but also from the beautiful places that they are from. Now, I'd like to extend a special word of welcome to the 4 partner universities in this initiative: Flinders in Australia, Gulf in Canada, Malmö in Sweden, and we are very grateful that the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Sweden is with us also here today. Cecilia Christensen, thank you very much. And I know you were here last week for an important conference, and to be here as well and to spend this time shows also how special this relationship with Malmö is in beginning to think about the global classroom. But then, as Antoinette has done, all the colleagues here at Stellenbosch University in South Africa who did a lot of work to help us focus in preparation for this conference. And you will not believe it, it is actually a serious effort that they've put in to pull us all together for this very important Seboka. Now you know what the Seboka means. It's a place where people come together to seriously put their minds together to think about where we're going, not necessarily just where we're coming from. Welcome also to colleagues from other institutions and organizations in our sector, including at the University of Botswana, Coventry University in the UK, Dalarna University in Sweden, the University of the Western Cape, here in this region, as well as the University of Cape Town, is represented here, the University of Mangosuthu, the Vaal University of Technology, and then also the CUT who is here, and CPUT, the Cape Peninsula University of Technology. The Tertiary Education and Research Network of South Africa is also represented here, and we're glad that we can all be together. We are also joined by participants and speakers from the private sector, specifically Google, who became a very important partner with us in this big project, and Microsoft, and Remgro and Peter Ace will be talking to you later in a few minutes. And he told me I mustn't take too much of his time, so I'll try my very best. And then there's Naspers, who also sent Bertie du Plessis to share some thoughts with us today. And last but not least, welcome to the real VIPs in the global classroom of the 21st century, our educators and our students. Thank you that you have given so much time coming from Malmo, coming from here, from different institutions. We really hope that it will be an enriching experience to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, now you know that all of you are key players in transforming education through technological innovation. And today you will be tackling these tough terms to see how you can take us forward, because this is the theme of the conference. Now, words like technology and innovation have futuristic connotations. And in some ways we are already in the future. But before I go there, I want to take you back in time, as far as 1,000 years and more, to the birth of the first universities, when communities of teachers and scholars and students started coming together in pursuit of knowledge. This took place in Europe, but similarly also in other parts of the world. And it was about thinking about human societies through the ages, and it happened in the Far East, in the Islamic world, an important part of the growth of the early universities, the early challenges of education, Africa and the Americas. Our species of humans are not called Homo sapiens for nothing. We are the wise ones. Or that is what we're supposed to be. We are the creatures who want to know, and that is why we learn and teach. Not just learn, but also teach. And in teaching, try to find the connection between the learning experience of students and the teaching experience of educators. And we do that to find knowledge, to ultimately seek wisdom. That is why in the earlier years of the development of the university, people spoke more of contemplation. So let's contemplate the tough questions of our society, think through them, use the wisdom that we have, and get to a point at which we can build an educational and a scientific endeavor. And it is our need to know that while that has spurred advances in history and over time, knowledge is what has brought us here from ancient times through the Middle Ages to the Industrial Age and now in the Information Age. Knowledge has always been important, and now it is even more significant in our globalized world. To my mind, that forms the backdrop to our discussions and our engagement with difficult questions. But it's not about technology per se, but about what we do with it. how we use it in learning and teaching, how we use it in our pursuit of knowledge and wisdom in a hyper-connected world. I want to share something with you, and it is in line with South Africa's white paper for post-school education and training, approved in November last year. And I quote, "The success of an educational program will be determined by its pedagogical strength and not by information and communication technology, which can sometimes be used poorly or as gimmicks, as we have seen in certain places." So it is this important question of understanding that there is this connection of the pedagogical role of learning and teaching, and then to ask the question of how we use it in blended contexts, such as with technology. So, if pedagogy is still the foundation of what we do in our sector, science and the art of education will be stronger, not weaker, in its blended learning and its virtual connection with technology. But yes, of course, technology has an impact, a huge one. But it's not about technology in the first place. It is about the pursuit of knowledge. And this is something that I cannot repeat enough, because this is the challenge. It is whether a professor or whether an educator is still committed to the pursuit of knowledge, not to the pursuit of technology. And this is a very big challenge to begin to think of where am I, what am I doing, how do I go forward, and how do I make this commitment to something that I have given parts of my life to. It is true that a big part of the modern developments in the early 21st century, the late 20th century, in other parts of the world, especially in America, was driven by a certain sense of a pragmatism. So something is worth it if it can work, if it can be applied, if it can be done. And last night, the vice rector is teaching and learning, and I sat at the table and we started this very difficult debate. He actually started it about how do we think about what is it? Are we working with and is it information or is it knowledge? And if you go back to English, to Afrikaans, it is even more complex to understand that. But the thing is, it's when I thought about it last night, and I realized that yes, it is the big question of if you use something that is so strongly pragmatic as a tool, it leaves more time for contemplation, not less time. It gives a professor, it gives a lecturer much more time to really ask the tough questions above what the tool brings into the classroom and exudes out into the global classroom for everybody to see. And this is what I think will be the real challenge for us all in higher education, is what is the value that we will add to a student who has access to all that technology. And that value must be in contemplation, must be in the difficult questions, which after the difficulties in the economic sector and in property in 2008, that we realized that we have not done enough contemplation. We have not asked the difficult questions about what is happening to society. We just looked at the figures, we just counted them, and we did not ask what are the ethical questions, what are the moral debates that we should engage. And it is perhaps now time to also look at the most difficult question in higher education, the search for the truth. And that is, I think, where we will either fail society in the future or where we will add value to societies of the future with the strong presence of technology. Now, in South Africa, we have made a commitment to the African to South Africa's National Development Plan, and in the development plan, a major part of it refers to improving the quality of education, skills development, and innovation. And the needs are great in our society, because if I must tell you what our context is about, I think it will help you see how great the need is. Unemployment in our country stands at 25%, and it is even worse if one look at young people. It is 71% of 15 to 34-year-olds that are unemployed. And that is the group of people that we have a responsibility to, and we can't wait until they can one day turn up at the classroom. We have to ask ourselves, how do you get to them? How do you engage them with knowledge? And how do we deal as higher education institutions with this very big challenge of a big youth unemployment? Education and training of the right kind and quality can help them not only to find jobs, but also to create their own employment, to begin to take the next steps in thinking innovatively. Generating income this way will be good for the whole economy. So I think the National Development Plan is right. Education is the major driver of the changes in this country and of many parts in the world, but especially for this continent, Africa, over the next years. But now, if you look at how many of these students are enrolled, the reality is that it's only 3% of 20 to 24-year-olds are enrolled for further education and training programs. So we have to begin to look at who is outside of that. If universities are public assets, what do they do? And this is where technology comes in. It's still the foundation of what we do in our society, the pedagogy, the science, and the arts of education. Of course, technology must help us take it further. Now, innovative use of information and communication technology extends learning and teaching opportunities beyond the confines of the physical classroom. And there's more technology, technology transforms the learning and teaching experience. It makes it more transparent. The closed classroom of the past becomes the open classroom of the future. The space of the teacher becomes the space of the learner. Technology opens up education, potentially to the whole world. The local classroom becomes globally accessible, and that is why this initiative is called the Global Classroom. This has various implications. One that springs to mind immediately is that it can improve the quality of education. If you are a university lecturer and you know that anyone in the world can take your class, you are going to work harder. And if you know that they can watch it overnight again, you are going to innovate on top of what you did the last time. You would want to be completely up to date with developments in your field. You'd like to be seen to lead your own thinking. But it also changes the way you teach, because students learn differently. They have access to lectures by the best professors in the world any time of the day. And I did a class once last year, and while I was talking and I gave a number of dates, etc., I saw the students go onto the internet, and then I see they started to laugh with each other. They say, yes, he's not lying. They carry around humankind's collective knowledge on a smartphone in their pockets. So why not use it to engage more students and connect to the way they want to learn? Use technology to extend the reach of education. Use technology to enrich the quality of education. The benefit of using technology in this way is that it makes teaching student-centered. And you will know that we have been struggling for the past 20 years since the changes, and to get one thing right, to make learning and teaching student-centered. We have not achieved it everywhere, we have not gotten it right everywhere, and it's still one of the big challenges, and I think technology is going to be a driver to help us understand. The question is not how you teach, the question is how they learn. The focus will have to be on the learning experience. The purpose of teaching is actually learning. And it makes the learning and teaching process a two-way street. Educators and students collaborate to generate and convey knowledge. And the local classroom, local insights are unlocked globally. And global understandings impact on local contexts. That is another way in which technology can improve the quality of education by increasing diversity, the diversity of thinking, the diversity of people, and the diversity of ideas. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this conference is an exercise in diversity and collaboration across continents. Flinders University in Australia, the University of Guelph in Canada, Malmö University in Sweden will each get their turn to host an event like this. And each time we will all join in to unpack the various challenges and opportunities of e-learning. You would have noticed that this Stellenbosch conference is called a Seboka. And Seboka is a Sotho word meaning coming together, or a group of people meeting for a common cause. The local classroom is exactly that, a meeting of minds with a collective goal for a collective future. We are here to ask ourselves how best to deal with blended learning and teaching. We are here to discuss issues critically, and most importantly, we are here to learn from each other. Now, the local classroom fits in with Stellenbosch University's whole project. I must tell you something about Stellenbosch University's work as well, which is a Science for Society initiatives aimed at sustainable human development. Higher education can enhance its societal impact by pursuing not only excellence, but also relevance. We have been joined in this pedagogy of hope by institutions across our continent, and for this particular project, Malmö played a very important role as we worked together to prepare the application that we did to the EU. But it is also important for all of us to remember that in the context of Stellenbosch, this is part of a very big project, a very ambitious project, because we have ambitious aspirations. And in our ambitious aspirations, you'll find these two words, the innovation and the transformation of a university for the 21st century. And that is what we're busy with, that is what we're tackling, and we think we have to do it now, or it will be in 5 years too late. Last week we had the Vice Chancellors of the University of Botswana, Dar es Salaam, Makerere, Malawi, Nairobi here, and they met together with our European partners as well, and we started to talk about how we will collaborate in using technology to do a number of things. One of the big issues on this continent is the training of teachers over the next years. We have a big challenge awaiting us after 2015 because we will have a far too big backlog. So we are glad that you are here, and I want you to know that you must feel part of a very bigger ambition of this university and help us think as best you can and help us grow in ways that strengthen our partnerships as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Russell. Would you be willing to take maybe one question, if there's a burning question from the audience? Maybe one question. Anybody? I think it was so important that you reminded us that pedagogy lays at the heart of all of this in terms of using technology, as well as that the real heroes are in the room today, and those are the lecturers and the students actually participating. And yesterday we really tested the technology to the max, and I think it's wonderful that it works, mostly. But the real heroes are the lecturers and the students, and that's what we want to honor through this conference as well. So thank you very much, Russell, for reminding us about that. Okay, so if there's no burning questions or issues, I would like to hand over to Peter Ace, who's going to talk to us about networks of innovation. And he's ideally suited to do so as previous CEO of Vodacom Networks and currently account executive at Remgrow. He's a Marty, true Marty, doing a variety of degrees at Stellenbosch University, finishing off with an MBA at the Business School, Martin. So definitely true Marty of Stellenbosch University. Thank you so much, Peter.
Morning. That's better. So when I woke up this morning, I have this little thing on my wrist. It's, you get different ones. Fitbit. This is the Garmin one. So I sleep with it. So it checks at night how I sleep. So I've been ill the last couple of days. So the first thing I did this morning was to check how did I sleep. And I logged onto my phone because it synchronizes with my phone, and it red popped up and said, "Stay in bed." So if I start coughing halfway through, please apologize. Sorry also, Professor, that I missed last night, and thank you. It's a real honor to be here with you this morning. Okay, so just a little bit about myself. I came to Stellenbosch in 1981, did an engineering degree. Then I had to go to the army, didn't want to go to the army, so I carried on studying, did my master's degree in engineering. Then I started work, soon realized that the engineer won't get very far in business if he doesn't understand what a cash flow statement is. So I came back, did my MBA also at Stellenbosch. And then Vodacom started, and I was fortunate to be part of that very first team that put Vodacom together, and I was there for 20 years. The last 5 of the 20 years was as CEO, but then I came to the decision, the Vodafone parent company, every 5 years they rotate their CEOs. So they told me, my 5 years is over, I have to go to London. So I had to choose between London and Stellenbosch. And it was not difficult. I see the weather is more like London today, so but that's how I ended up back in Stellenbosch. So it's a real honor to live in this wonderful town. I've joined Remgrow. I've been there a year now, and Remgrow is very well known here at Stellenbosch, also for their involvement with the university. And we'd like to continue our relationship with the university. So I've got a couple of videos just to make sure that you don't fall asleep. And I'll also be asking questions to make sure you don't fall asleep. So if half of the room fall asleep, I'm going to just stop talking. Okay. Hopefully you saw some of yourself in there, and hopefully it wasn't when they showed the illegal downloads of movies and video and music. So who can tell me what are the two most watched topics on TV at the moment? The one is the aeroplane that disappeared, and the other one is Oscar. And I want to include both of those in my presentation. The first one is the missing airplane, see if we can find it. And secondly, the whole Oscar trial and social media and how that's brought social media to the fore again. So the first one, I'm going to switch to a live application. I just want to open up the app. It's called Flight Radar. And I'm going to pop it up in the Hangout. And start. So this is a live application called Flight Radar. So it's got all the information in it about all the aeroplanes in the world. And it's live if I click on one of these planes. So these are all the planes above South Africa at the moment. So if I click on that one, it gives me the detail. It's a Boeing 737. There's the position. The speed is 785 kilometers per hour. And you can really see anything about it. What I want to show you, the fascinating thing about this is if you, and anyone can download this on your phone, or if we go to, just zoom out a bit, and move the display to Europe. That's a nightmare. And if you log on this app day and night, everywhere in the world, so aren't we killing the world? All of those are burning fuel tons per hour. We have to do something about this. But they're all live. If you click on any of them, let's do that one. That one is on the way from Dublin to Tenerife. And I'm just going to go back to the PowerPoint. Let's close this one. And open up my PowerPoint again. Back to the Hangout. Okay, so this was just, these slides were just in case my video didn't work. Okay, so the next one is a short little video, and afterwards I want you to tell me, was this made last week, last year, or more or less when?
Imagine, if you will, sitting down to your morning coffee, turning on your home computer to read the day's newspaper. Well, it's not as far-fetched as it may seem. In fact, most local San Francisco papers are investing a lot of money to try and get a service just like that started. Science editor Steve Ely reports on one person already using the brand new system.
17 stories up in his fashionable North Beach apartment, Richard Howard is calling a local number that will connect him with computers in Columbus, Ohio. Meanwhile, across town, in this less than fashionable cubby hole at the San Francisco Examiner, these editors are programming today's copy of the paper into that same Ohio computer. When the telephone connection between these two terminals is made, the newest form of electronic journalism lights up Mr. Howard's television with just about everything the Examiner prints in its regular edition. That is, with the exception of pictures, ads, and comments. 8 newspapers around the country are currently in the computer network, and within the next few weeks, 3 others will join in.
This is an experiment. We're trying to figure out what it's going to mean to us as editors and reporters, and what it means to the home user. And we're not in it to make money. We're probably not going to lose a lot, but we aren't going to make much either.
Both Examiner and Chronicle began service within the last 2 weeks and printed full-page ads about it. Of the estimated 2,000 to 3,000 home computer owners in the Bay Area, the Chronicle reports over 500 have responded by sending back coupons. Even though the electronic newspaper isn't as spiffy looking as the ads imply, people using the system are excited about its potential.
With the system, we have the option not only of seeing the newspaper on the screen, but also optionally we can copy it. So anything we're interested in, we could go back in again and copy it on the paper and save it. which I think is the future of the type of interrogation an individual will give to newspapers.
This is only the first step in newspapers by computer. Engineers now predict the day will come when we get all our newspapers and magazines by home computer, but that's a few years off. So for the moment at least, this fellow isn't worried about being out of a job. Steve Miller, News Center 4.
Well, it takes over 2 hours to receive the entire text of the newspaper over the phone, and with an hourly use charge of $5, the new telepaper won't be much competition for the 20-cent street edition.
Okay. Anyone know when that was? You were not born then. This was 1981. So it's not so long ago. And on one side, we've moved a lot, and we've come a long way, and that's what I'll be sharing with you also today. How far have we come? Just show you some of the technologies that are possible today. So the first one, as I worked at Vodacom, it makes sense for me to tell you a little bit about Vodacom and mobile telephones. Was this the first mobile telephone? This was at the end of the 1900s, 1990, around there, early, 1890, early 1905. And when you walk on a carpet and you touch somebody's hand, you sometimes have the electric shock. And that's how they discovered radio. And so maybe that was the birth of the first cell phone. I'm sure it didn't have ringtones and text, but this was it. Then your first car phone in the 1950s. You couldn't put your golf clubs also in the boot of the car. The whole telephone fitted in the boot of the car. So when was the portable telephone then discovered? This is the guy on the left-hand side, Martin Cooper. So how did he get the idea? And again, I've got a short little video clip just to remind you where it all came from.
One day, during a break from his heavy schedule of farming, Martin happened upon an episode of Star Trek and a piece of 23rd century technology that will change his life and take the whole world with him. I got it, and suddenly, there's Captain Kirk talking on his communicator. Talking with no dialogue.
Yeah, so that was 1 kilogram of phone. 10 years later, they launched the first one. It was a Motorola phone. And then in the same year, 1985, Vodafone started operations. Then around 92, it moved from analog to digital. And that's also when South Africa started thinking about where should we go in the future. I was fortunately part of that team, and we decided on the GSM standard. We put the business plan together end of 92, and we said if Vodacom could achieve 250,000 customers over 10 years, so the 10-year business plan said 250,000 customers, just shows you how wrong finance people can be. We connected the whole 10-year business plan after a couple of years every week. So we connected 250,000 customers per week. This is just some of the numbers. The first billion customers in the world took 20 years to connect. The second billion, 3 years. Today there are 6.8 billion active mobile devices. Some of them are telephones, some of them are devices. And the world population today, this was last night, is 7.221 billion. This is interesting stats. 31 million births, 13 million deaths. So as you can see, the population is just forever growing. But they also predict that in the next 40 years, it will start declining again. So this year, there will be 7.3 billion phones. So more phones in the world than there are people. So for the first time, the world mobile penetration will be more than 100%. This is just interesting. They are, at the moment, selling, to get to those numbers, 2 billion new phones every year. And that's relevant to us because what happens to the old phones? And more of those, maybe most of the 2 billion in the future will be smartphones. The suppliers tell me that in the next year or so, they will stop manufacturing the old phones. So you will only get smartphones. But this is an opportunity for us to hand down those phones because these smartphones can all access the internet. This was my first smartphone in 1995. It was a Nokia communicator, Nokia 9000, and it was big and bulky. It weighed almost a kilogram, but I could do my email. I could type on the keyboard. And today, this is where we are today. Smartphones, where you really have more power in your phone than this first space shuttle. Definitely more power than the first rocket to the moon. But where's it going to end? In the bottom right, you see some wearable tech, and I've got one of these. There's a new model out, so I've placed my order. But just to show you, and I know you can't all see it, but it's called the Samsung Galaxy Gear. And I'm just going to take a picture of you. So I go here, and let's hear the sound. So I took a picture now, and what happens to that picture? That picture now automatically goes to my cell phone. So if I log on to my cell phone, there should be a picture of Professor Botman. Let's see if it worked. There you are. And this just made me think last night. This is something that the universities should watch, because if somebody goes into a classroom in an exam with these watches, you can take a picture of the exam paper. It will automatically send it to your clever friend at home. He will send back the answers on your watch. So if you suddenly see lots of students continuously watching what's the time, they're not watching the time. They're getting the answers from somewhere. But with this device, I can go on the golf course. It can tell me how far is the next shot. If I get a call, my phone is in the golf bag. I can answer the phone. I can read my emails. I can do my SMSs. Everything from this device. So what will be the next device? And I'm not sure if so this is the next version of the phone, which is also interesting. If you look underneath the watch, it's got sensors. So in future, I don't have to ask my other fitness device, how am I feeling in the morning? This watch will tell you what you're feeling. It'll tell you your heart rate. It'll tell you when you have to go to the doctor. And this is not future stuff. This device is already on sale in the world, and I'm sure it's going to be soon in South Africa as well. So what is this thing? The guy from Google probably mentioned it yesterday, and I've placed my order, and maybe I should catch him. But this is just going to change the world. You might initially look a bit like a geek, but after a while, it will improve. And on there, you can really, apart from taking pictures, you can Google, you can get information. While I was still at Vodacom, we asked a couple of kids, they were still in school, what do they think and how do they see? And it was just such an interesting video that some of us are left behind in how far advanced the kids are, and we sometimes underestimate them.
I'm the circle, the whole. You know, like you. I try to cut angles, as well as express angles, once a month. We have LinkedIn, we have Facebook. Like when I have assignments and stuff, I can just go to the net via my phone. My phone, which has data, which is GSM, no problem. We need a camera to shoot people around. So a cheaper phone is good. With an expensive phone, especially because of the quality. And you can get a 24-month warranty. And we can go to the internet and without my phone, like this other week, my phone wasn't working, so I felt like half of my life.
So this is the future generation. They were born with cell phones. They were born with the internet. Both of those happened in the early 90s. So the new generation, when they come to varsity or when they're at school, they just think very differently about everything. But this can also be a problem, because what about the millions that don't have access to this? Is it not creating a bigger digital divide? And how can we work together to bridge that digital divide? Because the more you have access to this, the better you will do at studying, the more information you will have. But we have to find out a way, how do we bring the other millions with us? And this leads me to the next interesting slide. Some of you have seen this. This is Earth at night. If you see all the lights, North America, Europe, and they always call Africa the dark continent. But I don't think we are the dark continent anymore. And why do I say that? Firstly, a question again to see if you're awake. This is a picture of the two closest capitals in the world. And it happens to be in Africa. Anybody take a guess where it is? It's Congo Brazzaville on the other side, and the Congo DRC, Kinshasa on this side. This river Congo runs through the whole of the DRC. At places, it is 40 kilometers wide. And while it's 40 kilometers wide, you can still see trees flowing down the river. So strong is this river. And it runs 24 hours a day, every day of the year at that level. So when mobile came to Africa, it was going to be the promise of connecting the continent, because it is difficult to build networks on the continent. And I must say today, Africa is the second most mobile connected continent in the world. There are a billion people living, it's 1.013 billion people living in Africa. 650 million of them, that's the number of devices. So we are making progress. So it is part of the answer. Mobile has to be part of the solution. As we were building the networks in, this example is again the DRC. It's just fascinating how many entrepreneurs you find along the way. And DRC is a big country. The road infrastructure was not very good when we got there. So for example, if you were born in the eastern side of the DRC, you would never meet your family that lives in Kinshasa on the western side. The roads are just not good enough. The distances are too long. Flights are not good. So mobile really, for the first time, brought the opportunity for people to meet their family that they've never seen. When we were building in the middle of the DRC base stations, we were looking for high sites to build the base stations. And then suddenly we found this guy sitting high up in the tree. And we asked him, what are you doing? And he said, no, if I climb this tree, I can get 1 bar on my phone and I can make a call. So we said to him, but why do you have a tree house to do this? Surely you're not making so many calls. No, he then said, he saw this as a business opportunity. So now he's selling time in his tree house, so people underneath the tree queued up to come and make calls. So we immediately said to this guy, don't you want to work for Vodacom? And we made him one of our dealers. So now he wasn't just selling airtime in the tree, he was also selling Vodacom airtime. But then came the big data revolution, and this is the next part of my discussion. On here you can see the different devices, BlackBerry, Android, how many megabytes per month these users, and this is continuously growing. And I've got a very interesting story again about the youth. So one day at Vodacom, we suddenly saw that the average traffic in the 1 month doubled. So it's not possible to just overnight double the average traffic. We started doing some research, running some reports, and we saw this one BlackBerry, because on BlackBerry you get free internet, you get free emails. So we saw this one phone number that was doing 30 gigabytes for free on his BlackBerry device. And we couldn't figure out what was this guy doing. He was killing the whole network. And then we started seeing more and more of these things happen. And we saw that most of them happened around schools. So when I said we couldn't figure out what they were doing, so I called this guy, the guy that was doing 30 gigabytes per month, and a kid answered. He was in standard 8 at the time. And I asked him, I told him who I am, and he immediately put the phone down when he heard it was me. So I called him again the next day without my number showing, and he answered again. So I said, please, I just want to have a chat to you. You're not in trouble. Don't worry. So then I asked him, what are you guys doing? You're running up 30 gigabytes of data on a BlackBerry. Surely you can't watch so many movies on a BlackBerry. Then he said to me, no, it's a long story. They hacked the BlackBerry. They found a way to go into the BlackBerry to open it up to the PC. So now they all download free videos and TV series through their PCs, through the free BlackBerry. So what did I say to this guy? If in 2 years' time, please give me a call. Come and work at Vodacom. Just shows you that the youth is just in a very different league. So we hear a lot about broadband, also in South Africa and the rest of the world. We heard from that first video, how long did it take to download a newspaper? 2 hours. More. So how far have we come? And how fast is fast enough? I don't think we'll ever be fast enough, but this is just a video to put that into context.
But is 7 megabits per second down and 4 megabits per second up fast enough? What does that mean for typical internet use? At that speed, you can download 1 email in 1/10 of a second, or 10 emails per second. Web pages load 3 per second, and a typical smartphone photo only takes 2.2 seconds to download. But as you get to HD video, with file sizes larger than 6 gigabytes, you need over 4 hours.
Hello. Is this possible? Will we ever get that in Africa? Is fast enough? No, it's not fast enough. Today, 60% of the traffic in South Africa on the internet is from videos. But what's the next big leap? We spoke about the early phones, we spoke about smartphones. The next thing is about devices connecting to the internet. And I brought one of them with me, which is the one on the screen. It is a little thing called Raspberry Pi. I don't know if you've seen it, heard about it, but it was developed, and tell me if I'm boring you, this was developed to get kids interested in computers again. Because what they found was, in the 80s, lots of kids programmed with home computers. And then suddenly, the kids coming to varsity now, they don't have that. They know how to use computers, but they don't know how to work inside the computer. So they developed this little thing. It's more powerful than the space shuttle was when it stopped working. It's a full-on PC. It's got networking integrated. It's got lots of gigabytes. It's got Unix as an operating system. You can really do anything. You can run the fastest games on this little device, and it can connect to any TV. It can connect to those HD TVs. So this is really the next step. But why is that relevant to the internet? And again, a short little video just to put it into context. One day, everything around us will have a smaller version of that inside it. for example, your car, your fridge.
Communication.
That's a lot of data. So how are we going to transport that? So two ways to do that. Two ways to get to those bandwidths. And it's very relevant to the continent, to education, because you have to get the content to remote places. So the first answer is cable, undersea cable, optic fiber cables. Unfortunately, the African continent at this moment in time have enough of undersea cables. So you can see, for example, the one called WAX. Where's WAX? It says 5 terabits per second. Now that is more than enough than we will use for the next while. So we don't need more optic fiber. What we do need is that these telco operators pass it on to the end users. Unfortunately, the university have some of the bandwidth running up on CCOM, and it's fast enough. But you as the home user, you as the student also need it, because you want to be able to access any of these HD movies any time of the day. The next thing is, how do you get it to the people living on the continent? So there are two ways. Again, you must run the cables, but cables get stolen. So what we've done is we've started connecting all the major cities with fiber optic, and this is what it's already looking like. So we've come a long way. But the next thing is, how do you get it from there to the end user in Africa? We don't have enough time to dig holes to connect everybody, and that's where cellular or mobile technology comes in. But for that, you need spectrum. So on this slide, it just shows the evolution. GSM started there. It had 1200 bits per second, which is not much. It's slower than the original newspaper downloads of ours. But then we've grown up, and we've got HSDPA. You heard the kids speak about it. LTE, the networks launched it recently. And this is the megabits per second that you can now achieve over the network. But you can only achieve it with spectrum. So spectrum is what's all around us. You get spectrum, light is spectrum, radio waves are spectrum. Unfortunately, God created only so much spectrum. So you can't go to your local hardware store and order more spectrum. You have to go to the regulator and ask him for spectrum. So one of the things that's very relevant is next to the mobile phones, you get TV. And that's where the digital dividend is. So if we can unlock that digital dividend, we can suddenly use all that bandwidth and get the megabits per second down to each individual user. Is it possible? It's taking a very long time. Just look at South Africa. It's been 5 years for the regulator to get this thing going. So when you read about it in the newspaper, this is why it's relevant, to bring that content down to the end users. Facebook, you might see yourself on this. Who of you are on Facebook? Wow, almost everybody. How many of you have more than 300 friends? Oh, the rest of you are below average. The current average for above 30 years is almost 400 friends in the world. Well, that is the youth. The average in total is 200. So if you're above 200, you're above the average in the world. The web is dead. How can I say that? We're only starting. But there's a difference between the web, the World Wide Web, and the internet. So the web is when you log onto your internet browser, you open up www and you go into a website. But more and more in the future, we will not use the web in that way. And this was an article a couple of years ago in the Wired magazine where they predicted the web will die. And this is how it's dying, through apps. Every day you're using weather, you're doing downloads. You never go into a browser. You do your banking. You just click on an app. So there are currently 88 billion apps being downloaded every year on the network. And people don't know that they're using the internet. Just a quick story again about Vodacom. We started loading these apps on the phones. So then the one guy called us and he said he's suddenly got this huge data bill and he's never used the internet. How is it possible? Then we started asking, what are you doing on your phone? He said, no, there's this weather app, and he clicks on it, and every morning it tells him if it's going to rain. So there's also a lot of education we'll need to do, because he didn't realize that this app is actually the internet. My son started university in the last couple of weeks. So he came to me and he asked me about calculus, and I couldn't remember what it's all about. So I took out my new fancy calculator. Now, well, I just want to quickly tell you about this calculator. This calculator was designed for education. I've got it here, but at the front end, to stop the students from then downloading everything on this, it's got 3 lights. So the lecturer in the front of the room can control everybody's calculator, so it can switch off certain functions. It can download specific things relevant to the exam to the students. But I was being smart. I didn't know how to answer my son, and I typed in these questions into Wolfram Alpha, and then he told me, but this is, they all do it. So what they do is they type in all the questions, and he's never come back to me because I couldn't answer him. So I asked him this last weekend, so how are you studying, and who is explaining to you if you missed the class? So I said, no, they go into Wolfram Alpha to get the answers to their questions. Then they go into YouTube, and any lecture on anything in the world is on YouTube, and they explain it better than the lecturers. So soon kids will not go to class because they can do a lot better, and they can generate a lot more of their own educational content. Okay, so I'm getting to the end of my presentation. Just one last slide. What's special about this girl? Any guess? She's wearing a dress that was printed on this printer. Can you believe it? A 3D printer printing a dress. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. Hopefully I didn't bore you.
Thank you very much, Peter, for your very thought-provoking talk on where technology is going. I'm watching the time. It's now nearly 10 past, but if there's a burning question, we can shorten tea time just a little bit. So I don't know if you're available maybe for one question.
Yeah, and I'll stay for tea as well.
Yes.
Sorry I took off some of your tea time.
No, it's fine. Okay, then just to end off the session, I would like to hand over a bottle of wine to Professor Botman to say thank you for your talk this morning, as well as to Peter. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And with that, it's tea time. If you can be back at 10:30 and try and keep to the schedule. Thank you very much.